Well, we're less than 50 days out from the general election. Yep, it's that time of year once again, time where we're getting inundated with campaign pieces in our mailboxes, phone calls, text messages. We're talking to our neighbors, our colleagues, our family members about the upcoming presidential election. But wait, there's more at stake than just the presidential election. We've got elections up and down the ballot that need our attention. You hear me talk about all the time being an engaged resident, being an engaged constituent, being an engaged voter. Well, what does that mean? We're going to talk about that today. My name is Jennifer Mitchell Early. I help individuals and teams achieve organizational and personal success, and this is Leadership Matters. Being engaged is extremely important. It is critical. You've heard me talk about in my videos about being engaged at your and on your level. And what that simply means in layman's terms is being actively involved, participating, understanding the process, asking clarifying questions, communicating, and making your voice heard. With everything that's going on right now, I don't need to tell you how important it is for you to make your voice heard. Every year, I send out a newsletter to my residents around this time and around primaries as well, encouraging them to get out and vote. Your vote is your voice and it is your power. If you wonder why campaign stops aren't made in your region or in your community, it's because they look at the poll books to see who's been voting, to see the turnout in your area. And if you have higher voter turnout, you're likely to be on that campaign stop because you know what? Your area has demonstrated that people will get out the vote, and therefore they are influential because they have demonstrated their voting power. I have seen so many conversations on social media where there's so much rhetoric involved about getting out the vote and, what your platform should be as a Black African-American constituent, what I should be fighting for, what the Latino community should be fighting for, what the LGBTQ community should be fighting for, so forth and so on. We all need to be engaged in the process because together we are better and collectively we have the power to demand responses to critical issues. We have too much going on right now for people to sit on their hands. Nothing bothers me more than to hear rhetoric, which is just empty words, just with no action behind it about what should be happening, but I don't see any momentum in the direction to move us forward other than complaining. It's not going to get any better. My vote doesn't matter. The lines are too long. I don't know who's running. You've heard it all before. You've been engaged with these conversations, both in person and online. Enough. Today, let's be in agreement that we have heard and said enough. Let's follow the mantra that my mother gave me, that I've talked about multiple times on this channel, to let our actions speak louder than our words. So today I'm going to talk to you about 3 key things that you can do to be an engaged voter. Are you ready? Be engaged in the voting process by 1, being informed about the issues, whether they be issues concerning a levy for the school or the library or some other issue in your county or in your municipality. Understand the issues. Sometimes the legal language used to construct the issues can be confusing. Make sure that you're understanding exactly what's on the line, exactly what's being asked of you. If it's an amendment, that you understand the original language and what the amended language says and what the impact of the amended language is to you. Or if you have any questions, if it's worded strangely or it's worded in an ambiguous manner, that you clarify exactly what the issue means. And then 2, you understand the implications of the amendment to you and or your community at large. So the first thing is to understand, have a grasp of the issues that are going to be on the ballot in November. Let me say this, and I know I've said this before, and I know that you've heard this before, but it's worth reiterating that the local issues, your local elections, are the ones that impact you most directly. For example, the decisions that I make as a council person in my municipality directly impact the day-to-day life of my residents, more so than what our congresswoman does or even what the president does. All of the elections are important, but I want you to be as passionate about your local elections as you are about the federal elections. 2, be informed about the candidates who are seeking your vote. To be informed about the candidates who are seeking your vote, you have to know who's running for what. How many people are running for a seat? How many votes can you cast in a particular race? Are you picking one individual? Can you cast 4 votes for 4 different seats? Understand each race, how many times you can vote, and who's actually running for those offices. Once you understand that, then you're ready to go to the next step, which is to now begin to do your research on the candidates. Let me start with your judicial candidates. Those always are the ones that bring about the most consternation and confusion as it relates to, who am I supposed to vote for? I don't know, because there's multiple judicial seats at different levels and various candidates running at each level. And you're going to get a whirlwind of campaign literature and materials and commercials and all of those things geared to get you to vote for the candidate. What you have to do is now be able to decipher through all of the information that you're going to receive to see who is the candidate who most closely aligns with what you're looking for. So some of the ways or some of the resources available to you in making those decisions include, various organizations' endorsements, various organizations such as your Democratic, Republican, or even independent party affiliations and clubs. They will make endorsements. Your local newspaper will often make endorsement. You'll also want to look at your bar associations and other various associations that will make endorsements on judges, and they'll give you their background and education and all of that information for you to make an informed choice. So you have a couple avenues. Here in my county, we have an online resource called judgeforyourself.com, and you can go on that website and look up judges that are running for office, and they'll also give you information. But again, that is relative to the community in which I live in. Ballotpedia can also give you information. And if you do just a general search in your own community, they'll tell you about some other resources that are available too. Even though we're in a state of COVID, where we're social distancing and we're taking precautions, there still may be candidate forums available to you as well. Probably more than likely online, but there may be candidate forums where you can listen to the candidate. Someone will ask a question, much like the presidential debates, and then the candidate will be able to respond. And that's a good way to also hear about what the platform is for the individual. So those are some of the resources available for you to do a little bit of research, to read about and or see the candidates in action and why it is they're seeking that office, and whether or not you can make the determination whether or not they align with what you're looking for in a candidate for those particular offices. The next thing that I want to talk about, which is so important, is paramount, is a voting record or record of service. It's like Janet Jackson. What have you done for me lately? It's so important to know what people have done versus what they say they will do or what they say they can do. So for someone who is asking you to retain them in office, what have they done? What, not just what's on their campaign pieces or their literature, but literally, what has their voting record been? I have always told my residents, please, please do a public records request, pull meetings, the meeting minutes, so that you can see how individuals voted on issues. 5 years after the fact, I can tell you that I helped to retain our police department when the former administration was looking to consolidate with another municipality. But better yet, you can pull the records and see the roll call for the vote and see how I voted. That's important. Do your own research. Take a look at the record for yourself. If it's someone new to office, ask them how they plan to bring their platform to fruition. Everything sounds good in theory. You want to be able to work collaboratively because there's some dissension amongst the, members, and you want to be there to bridge the gap. Well, pray tell, how do you plan to do that? That is extremely important. Not just the why is important, but how they plan to go about doing it, because you want to know that they understand that it takes working with other individuals, and you want to know that they understand that it's a matter of working with people so that they can support you by way, if it's a legislative body, by way of a vote. If it's an administrative individual, that you can work with your legislative body to bring about change, or whatever it is that's on your platform. If you want to do more in the school district, that you have relationships that you've already established with school board members, and you've been active in the school district, and you've already talked about some of these plans you want to bring to fruition. And this is what it looks like, and this is how far you have to go. And this is what the culminating piece will be. You just want to have an idea that it's not just empty words, that there really is a plan in place that person intends on pursuing and has already lined some things up to get to that point, so that their platform is really not just an idea or, a fantasy, but in fact has the potential to be reality. As you look at individuals' voting records, I just want to leave you with a quick formula of 3 R's when you think of someone's record, right? Recent, relevant, and relatable. Recent. If they've been in office for some time, which on your local level is really not that far-fetched. It's really not a unique scenario. It's really more common than not, because on the local level, typically you don't have, and I'm speaking of municipal elections, you really don't have term limits, because you can have someone like my father, who was a council person for 25 years. You want to know in those instances, what has been their in recent years, what has been their voting record? Or is there, as it relates to relevancy, are there certain issues that you want to pinpoint? Maybe they flip-flopped over the years. Maybe their perspective has changed. To me, that would be interesting to know. If they start off with wanting to consolidate the police department to now being absolutely against, sharing those resources beyond. And when I say sharing resources, I'm not talking about mutual aid. You see that in every community where we agree to help one another. I'm talking about where you abolish your department and then you regionalize with another municipality with their department. So I would want to know, like, if somebody changed, and if they changed, what changed their perspective. I would like to know their voting record on, police brutality, civil unrest, finances. I mean, have we spent a lot of money under your tutelage? And if so, what has been your response? Have we in turn gained a lot of revenue? Were you able to bring in a lot of economic development? And, therefore we've been able to, really move forward and really make some great changes because we now have the revenue to do it. And then what's your plans about sustaining it? How are we able to make sure that we stay economically sustainable? So I would want to know your recent record. I would want to know your record as it relates to things that I find relevant to me and relevant issues in our community and our county or our state. And finally, I would want to know if it's something that is relatable, if it's something that is important specifically to me. So what are you going to do if we don't have green space, for example, to increase our green space? What are you doing to keep our residents healthy, our seniors, to take care of them, to have our young people have some activities and things to do, those things that I can relate to. So that would be my 3 R's if I had to give somebody something real quick that they could do, and that would be, fairly easy. What's the recent record? What's the relevancy of how they voted, and is it relatable to you? What does that mean to you? And then my third and final tip to being engaged in the voting process is do. Participate, right? And so we talk about that. I'm talking about getting registered, making sure that you're registered, making sure that you're registered in the right municipality. If you've moved, follow up with your board of elections to make sure that they have your new address prior to election day. Plan to vote. I did a whole video on completing the census, which is extremely important, and planning to vote. You hear every day, all day long. I literally have to cut off the news. I'm not kidding, because I just get up to here with it. You literally hear every day about what's being done to thwart and suppress your vote. If we hear about it every day, it's probably likely to occur. So, long lines in urban areas, we've seen it. No surprise there. When the former First Lady, forever my First Lady, Michelle Obama, tells us to pack a lunch because you could be there for hours, it's real. I don't know how else to tell you. It's possible. So plan your vote. There are 3 ways that you can vote. You can vote early, you can vote by mail, or you can vote in person. Here, we began voting on October 6th. My application for my ballot went in on August 11th. I'm not playing games with the Postal Service. I know it's not my mailman's fault, and I know he can't really do anything to control it. But if I move early enough, I should be able to get my ballot before November 3rd and do what I have to do to cast my vote and make my voice heard, because this election will definitely impact my life. And then you can vote by mail. When you get your application back, depending on what's going on with your states, please do not wait to the last minute to see what your states are going to do. My state is going back and forth over ballot boxes. 1 minute, we're going to have extra ballot boxes. Next minute, the Secretary of State is saying no. Now it's back in court. It's going to go back and forth. Guess what? I'm not waiting on the Secretary of State, and I'm not waiting on the judicial branch. I plan on getting my ballot and driving myself down to my Board of Elections and dropping it off at the ballot box right there on the premise of our Board of Elections. That's my plan. What's your plan? If you determine that you're going to vote in person, right? As soon as, I know friends of mine are saying, I'm going down on October 6th, I'm going to be in line to vote early in person. Then make a plan to be there. Understand there still may be lines because a lot of people don't want to be out there actually on election day. So keep that all in mind. Make plans for, basic necessities like food, being able to relieve yourself, child care, work, pet care, whatever the case may be. Make your plan to vote. It's too important to leave this stuff by the wayside and try to do it the day of, because anything can happen. And right, isn't that what always happens? That when you least expect it, when you don't have the time, when you don't have the recourse, if something pops up to try to derail you from the mission. Your mission is to cast your vote, make your voice heard in the 2020 election, from the top of the ballot all the way down the ballot. And then activism. Get other people to vote too. Okay, so those are your 3 things, right? Those are your 3 tips, your 3 strategies, if you will. 1, know the issues. 2, be informed about the candidates. And 3, most importantly, actively participate. Cast your vote and encourage others to cast their vote as well. That was a lot. I feel like I had a lot to say. I'm always so passionate about this topic. It is so, so, so important. This is about a clarion call to action to get out the vote, to make sure that we are all counted for in the census and accounted for in the census, to make sure the dollars come back to our communities, and to make sure that we have platforms geared for our issues and representatives that actually represent us, who are actually a voice for their residents and for their constituency, for the districts that they serve, and who actually represents us in the highest office. So share this video, vote, and get out the vote.